Towards the end of 2021, I actually stopped using Instagram hashtags as a part of my strategy for growing on Instagram. And I have to say that it has not affected my growth at all. And I've still been able to grow by thousands of followers, have hundreds of thousands of views in my account, reach so many people through my Instagram while basically just ditching hashtags. And so moving into 2022, that is a huge part of my strategy and making sure that I'm focusing on other things besides hashtags. So basically, this video is going to be breaking down exactly why I stopped using hashtags, the few reasons why I would maybe recommend using hashtags if you are wanting to still incorporate some hashtags and different brands that hashtags could actually be super impactful for, and just my thoughts on all of this and basically deciding for yourself whether or not it's actually worth it to be putting time into hashtags to grow on Instagram nowadays. So, the main reason why I have decided to basically just ditch hashtags and not use them is because in comparison to the reach that I was getting, through Instagram Reels specifically, I wasn't seeing anything near the amount of reach, the amount of growth that I was seeing versus the amount of time I was spending on hashtags, right? So basically, I was looking at what is my biggest time return on investment. And for me, the amount of time I was putting into creating better Instagram Reels, creating more Instagram Reels, right? Versus putting time into constantly changing my hashtag strategy and trying to gain more views from that wasn't giving me the results that I wanted. And even from some of my best posts where I could see the exact analytics of hashtags and my reach with that, and the max amount I would get that seemed really, really good for me was maybe 5,000 views through hashtags. But then even breaking that down even further, I realized, okay, I'm only gaining maybe 10 followers from this. The amount of engagement I'm getting is not worth it. And for the amount of time I was spending on Reels, I was getting upwards of, over a year time frame, I gained about 20,000 followers with Instagram Reels. I've had hundreds of thousands of views through Instagram Reels. I regularly get way more than 5,000 views on my Instagram Reels. And so for me, the amount of effort I was putting into hashtags and trying to reach people outside of the audience that I currently had, so non-followers, I was reaching way more people by not using hashtags and instead putting my time and effort into my Instagram Reels strategy and making sure, I'm focusing on that and, tweaking that and making changes and finding out what's working versus putting time into my hashtag strategy. And it's not that hashtags don't work at all, but I just think the way that Instagram is going, the way that they are prioritizing different things, they're not prioritizing, showing users on their platform posts from hashtags directly in their home feed unless they follow a hashtag versus, you could have a reel that you create that is getting shown up in the home feed now of people who do not follow you and see your reel. Like, that's insane. And so for me, just that simple fact combined with when someone goes to the Reels Explore page and is just scrolling through Reels, they're seeing mostly Reels from non-followers. And so the amount of reach and potential for reach with Reels, I think, is a lot stronger for the amount of time and the effort that you're putting into your Reels versus putting it into hashtags. And I do think there's so many different ways to do Reels. I just want to mention that right here, that there's not one way you have to do Reels in order to use them for them to feel genuine to your brand. And so no matter who you are or what kind of brand you're trying to grow, I do think there is a way that you can use Reels in order to grow with Instagram. And I'll just mention right here too that I actually have a free class on Instagram Reels all about how to grow your followers, reach, and customers with Reels. And it really goes into depth into all of that. So if you're interested in that, the link will be down in the description. I do also want to give the caveat. So for me and my brand, I actually started my business as a wedding photographer. So as a service-based, location-based business where I knew my ideal client was searching in the Instagram, either search function or they were looking in hashtags to find photographers. And so I do want to mention that I think there are select types of brands where hashtags can still be really useful, right? I think if you're a location-based business, if you are, especially maybe a service-based business that's very specific, right? I think that's where hashtags can become even more helpful. So I know for me as a photographer, I would commonly get inquiries for my photography through the hashtags I was using. If I was, for example, using, hashtag Columbus wedding photographer or hashtag Ohio family photographer, it was a lot easier for me to get found in hashtags because those generally have upwards of max 30,000 posts under that one hashtag versus now as an educator for, creating content in Instagram, hashtags like Instagram tips have upwards of, thousands and thousands of posts under those hashtags, and the likelihood of my posts getting seen in those hashtags is just way smaller because it's not as like small of a niche, if that makes sense. It's not as specific, and I would say it's almost not as searchable when someone is thinking about like trying to find a specific type of, provider or type of person to help them with something specific, like a wedding photographer, or, I would apply this to wedding vendors or even like brick and mortar stores, like maybe coffee shops or restaurants. There are, using local hashtags can be very impactful. I can even think for restaurants using things like Columbus foodie or, things like that, like, what bloggers might even use to promote different places that they're eating. And so I think if you are a locally based business or like you have a very specific niche and you know that your ideal client is using hashtags to search for you, by all means, please still use them. If they are working for your account, use those hashtags, right? But I do think for the majority of brands, I think your time is going to be better spent put into, creating Instagram reels if you're trying to specifically grow a following outside of your own account and you aren't location based, especially, so like if it doesn't matter, the people you serve, the people that you help, if it doesn't matter where they're based, I don't think hashtags are going to be as applicable to you or as helpful for you versus if you are location based, hashtags can be more helpful because it can help you to get seen by people in your local community, right? Versus reels can be more difficult to specifically pinpoint. Like you can't pinpoint trying to show reels specifically to people who don't follow you and who live in your area. Although that can happen, right? Those can be mixed in with people who find your reels. That can be a little more difficult to do. So I do think that is the caveat. I do want to say another caveat that I've been playing around with more recently is more with like big life events that are happening. So maybe you're getting married, maybe you're having, like for me, I'm having a baby soon. And so I have been playing around with, like whenever I post bump updates or things like that, I will play around with hashtags that have to do with pregnancy and, pregnancy bumps and stuff like that, just to see. I'm very curious to see if that's another way that you could potentially grow your audience. But again, unless it relates to exactly what you do and what you offer, like I'm not expecting that to actually grow my brand too much besides just growing my personal lifestyle brand, right? And so I do think at the end of the day, there's a few different things I want you to think about when it comes to hashtags. One, if they're not working for your account, don't use them. Put your time and effort into things that are actually going to be working to grow your account, whether that's Instagram Reels, whether that's creating better posts, engaging with your community, creating stories more on a daily basis, instead of stressing yourself out about having to use the right hashtags. I personally think at the end of the day, if we're thinking about Instagram's goal is to keep people on their app and their platform as long as possible. And if you're doing a good job of that, right, especially when it comes to things like reels or stories, Instagram's gonna want to show your stories to more of your audience. Instagram's gonna wanna push your reels to people outside of your audience because if they're doing a good job at that goal, at keeping people on their app as long as possible because you're creating such engaging content, you're going to get so much reach just by doing that. I think that having hashtags or, even a fear of having the wrong hashtags, right? I don't think that's going to mess anything up necessarily if you're doing those things right. And so don't stress yourself out about it if it's not something that you want to focus on, or like I mentioned, you're not a type of brand or business that it's probably going to impact in a really big way. And I would also say on the flip side of that, if it is working for your account, by all means, keep doing them, right? These are just the observations I have made as an educator who teaches a lot on Instagram Reels and seeing a ton of different accounts. I just don't think hashtags are a make or break thing when it comes to how well your content is doing. I don't think using the right hashtags is going to make your content actually get traction or be seen by more people. I just don't think it's a big part of of that piece of the puzzle. And so another thing that I want to remind you of at the end of the day, just recognize where you're spending your time and where you're actually getting time investment back, right? So make sure that you're looking at your Instagram insights, the analytics, make sure you're looking at what's actually working. You know, maybe there's reels that are doing really well for you. Create more of that to grow your account. Or you're noticing that certain stories are engaging with your audience well. Create more of that, right? And if you're looking at your Instagram posts and your analytics under that, you can actually see it breaks down, you know, how many people who don't follow you and found you potentially through hashtags, how many of those people actually followed you after seeing the post, like all of that stuff. And for me, looking at those insights, and as someone who likes to use my insights and analytics to drive a lot of the decisions that I make, it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth my time anymore, especially because my business is no longer like a location-based business, right? And I don't need to reach people who are specifically local to me. It wasn't worth putting a ton of time and effort and energy into my hashtags. I would also ask yourself, what would you rather be doing? Would you rather be constantly trying to figure out the latest hashtag strategy, stressing yourself out about that, and have it potentially not even work to help grow your account, right? Or simply just focus on making amazing, engaging content that is going to not only reach people outside of your audience, right, but also help to create a great, strong community within your own audience. More followers isn't necessarily going to fix any problems in your business. It's not necessarily going to be the key to always grow your brand, right? Although that can help, but having foundational things in place to make sure you're actually creating a strong community on your account and you're actually creating great content on a consistent basis, I think it's going to have more impact than, you know, making sure you have the right hashtag. And I just don't think they play a huge role in whether or not your content is doing great or not. I think it has more to do, again, going back to Instagram's goal, has more to do with how great your content actually is, how engaging it actually is. And I just personally, the hashtags don't play the biggest part in that, right? So again, if you want to join that free Instagram Reels class, the link will be right below this video. If you want to learn more about Reels, if that's something you're interested in focusing on instead of hashtags to grow your Instagram following, I've seen some crazy results with Reels, from reaching millions of non-followers to having hundreds of thousands of views on a single reel to growing my own following by over 20,000 followers in about a year, which is just absolutely insane. And so I would love to teach you more about how to use Instagram Reels to actually make an impact, right? And actually reach a ton of people, but also have it make an impact on your brand or your business and actually grow in that way. So if you want to learn more about that, there's a free 1-hour class all about how to do that. You can watch it at any time by heading to the link down below. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, also be sure to subscribe and like this video. It truly does help to support my channel for more people to see this. And we chat a lot about Instagram and creating relevant content to grow your brand. And so if you are interested in that type of thing, be sure to subscribe, because I upload a new video every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's when you can expect new videos around here. We would love to see you. Stick around, and I will see you guys next Tuesday. Bye guys.